Hi, I'm Kayleigh Rose Evans. I'm a social worker in the UK and I also provide independent training. In this video, I'm going to be giving some tips on adults interviews. And the first thing to say is just if you are nervous about going for an interview, that's completely normal, especially if you haven't done one in a while or this may be the first sort of interview you've been to. What I will say is like my most popular video is one that I put out where I said I failed my first social work interview. And I think it's because I was just honest about the challenges I faced. I felt like I didn't even know where to start with preparing for that interview. I just kind of turned up and hoped that they'd like me. And luckily they did, even though I felt like I could never go and show my face again, because I felt so like I was beating myself up after the interview. But actually it went way less bad than I thought it did. But since then, I have sort of got a strategy for what works for me. With interview preparation, I often feel a lot more confident now, and I want to share those tips with you today. So there are some things that you can definitely prepare in advance, but it's also making sure that you come across naturally on the day. You don't want to look like you're sort of memorizing a whole list of things. So there's a few ways of doing that. I find that I prepare well just having notes and bullet points. Other people maybe would start with having a big spider diagram of all their thoughts. And then something else that someone advised me on, Ali Gardner, a really good friend of mine and someone I had to do some work with, she said about imagining 6 juggling balls above your head, and each one of those is an example that you're going to bring to the interview. And once one drops, you sort of toss that aside and let it go, but you're then using the other ones. And with these balls, you're sort of writing down one word that helps you to remember the example that it is. So for interviews, I always make sure that I've got something ready for working effectively within a team, something that I'm proud of, a piece of work that I'm proud of, something that I can bring to the role, skills that I have. And with skills, that's not just skills of like talking to people, but it's also skills around assessment and time management, organising a complex caseload. And then I always need to have something ready about managing conflict, either with people we're supporting or within a multidisciplinary team. I feel like that's something that comes up a lot, but also you don't want to be thrown off if they ask you something about theory or research. So make sure you have one of those in your head and ready to apply to a scenario, or just something that's like really relevant to that particular role. You want to have looked at the person's specification and make sure that sort of your examples and the things that you're referencing align with what they're looking for. And in general, I think you need to show that you're someone who wants to progress and further yourself with your CPD. So it's just about not necessarily that you want to move up the ladder or the hierarchy, but just that you want to progress in terms of your knowledge base in the role and showing your genuine side as well. So making sure that you're putting across why you really want this role. And if you are nervous, you could just acknowledge that and say, because it means a lot to you, and just be genuine about that. Remember that the panel are people and they're also social workers by background, most likely. So people like that buy into human beings and what they stand for, their values. That's central to social work, and also someone that's going to be measured and balanced and fit in within a team. Something that I often do is I find out a priority of that team. So if they're looking for someone who's a practice educator, maybe they have a shortage of them, I'll really emphasize that that's something that I'm either qualified in or I'm working towards, and that can help you. I know it's not always that everyone has that opportunity to find that information out, but if you are sort of able to, that can really help. And then in terms of just managing your general anxiety, I tend to take a blank sheet of paper and a pen. it just helps with those multiple part questions, and means that you could maybe write 3 bullet points so that you don't lose track of what they're saying. Or if they give you a case study on the spot where they're reading it out, you can write down some key points, so that then you're able to address the question without feeling like you need to ask for it to be repeated lots of times, or you just feel anxious that you can't retain all of that information. And I don't think that they would look badly on this, because it kind of shows that this is the way that helps you think. Other people may have other things that work for them, but I also think, just taking the sips of water or taking a breath every now and then, it sounds really obvious, but sometimes you can not do that, and then that can increase anxiety even more. So in general, I wouldn't take the interview process too personally. You don't know if they've got someone lined up for a role already, unfortunately, and you are entitled to a fair interview. But sometimes it can be very competitive. They may have someone internal, so don't let it get you down, but always ask for feedback if you can, because that will help you to develop yourself. I think sometimes it's unfortunate if you are going against people who maybe have more experience and you're a less experienced worker. Like sometimes you can't make yourself zoom forward 3 years. So you just have to keep going and just hope that something will fit with you and them. But something that's really worked for me is just to sort of try and gain rapport with the panel so that they want you on their team. So I remember once that I was just like, oh, I'm just so excited, like by the prospect of working with you. Now I've met you properly, like I just feel this job would really suit me, and I meant it, and it just came out, and it just felt like we clicked, and that was really positive, and I ended up getting that job, and I didn't have that much experience at that time, and I do know that I was going against people with more experience than me, so that definitely like came across for me, and that helped. And then thinking about a question that you're going to ask the panel as well, that's really important. And I was recently at the Community Care Conference, a live event in London, and one of the panelists talking about how to succeed in interviews was saying to see the whole process as an intellectual conversation, and to sort of have interesting things to ask them. And something the panel wants to know, like I mentioned earlier, is that you do want to sort of develop yourself, you're enthusiastic. So you may as well ask something along those lines, which could be what development opportunities do you offer in the team, or for me to further my knowledge, or something like that. Always make sure that you sort of on top of the law, and you've got a few basic bits of knowledge on that. So safeguarding, working under the Care Act, because that's the key basis of like the legislation that we work within, the Mental Capacity Act, and doing that sort of work. And then with the case scenario, you just need to make sure that you're being very balanced, and that you're gathering the information. You acknowledge if you need more information, but you try and provide an analysis and imagine that this is a real situation that you're walking into, and how you'd sort of adapt to that on the day. So I do have more detailed interview tips videos in a folder on my YouTube channel. So you should be able to find that. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. That really helps the channel, and I hope you found this helpful.